Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I must say that this is something that which most of the time Indo-Pacific when we talk about, it's mostly concentrated on the Navy. But because IPACC is something which is concentrated on the land forces, this is we are doing for the first time. And as all of you know, IPACC is a forum where chiefs of the armies of Indo-Pacific, nearly 40 countries, sometimes assemble and discuss every 2 years. And this time it's being co-hosted by India and the United States, which last edition of this had happened in Bangladesh, and India is now the host this year. Next week, 25th to 27th is the event, as all of you are aware. This is the 14th edition of IPACC, as we are aware of this record. So let me start with the defense attaché from the United States, Colonel Hayes, and ask him that since United States is the co-host and the initiator of this particular forum, can you share some history of this forum and how it has panned out, how is it has evolved over the years?
Great, thank you, Nitin. So we already covered a little bit this morning with Lieutenant General Kumar, two main Navy engagements here, with Lieutenant General Kumar's speech, so I won't recap all of that. But as we said, IPACC has been going for about 13 iterations now, and it is an opportunity to bring the most senior Army officers in the region together to talk. And all my fellow attachés know the challenges of trying to get our senior leaders together to talk. It's very challenging synchronizing all the people's calendars to find those opportunities. So by hosting a single event once a year somewhere in the theater where we bring all these people together, it really helps all the chiefs by giving them that chance to talk to all of their counterparts, both in the big group sessions where we can talk about these common challenges and experiences that we all see going on throughout the world, because all armies face some pretty common challenges, whether it's modernization or pertinent to the theme here, dealing with natural disasters and climate change, but also just the opportunity to have all the bilateral discussions with their counterparts is a huge advantage, because nobody can afford to do the amount of travel it would take to go all over the region seeing everybody. So having a venue where everyone comes together in one place is very helpful. And similar with IPAMs, when we've been doing IPAMs since 1977, the first iteration had 9 countries. This year we're going to have at least 30, and that number may grow even more before we actually get to Monday night. The fact that has grown indicates that everyone clearly finds value in this. If this was not something where all our armies found valuable, people wouldn't come. Everyone's time is very valuable. And it's very helpful to have not just the chiefs, but the IPAMs, which gives that opportunity for that next level down, the vice chiefs or the directors of operations and plans in the various countries to talk with their counterparts. Because again, that's really where the sausage gets made, is at that level. When a crisis starts, those are the guys who need to have some personal interaction in the past, some kind of connection, because it doesn't work well to try and build trust after the crisis already starts. It's important to have those relationships already there. And so we find both IPACC and IPAMs to be a great opportunity to promote not just peace around the region, but the interpersonal connections that really will make military operations successful when we do have to work, either working together or even just working unilaterally, learning from each other's lessons, because what none of us want to do is relearn a lesson the hard way that somebody else in the region has already figured out. So all in all, it's a great architecture. It binds the region together. It provides great opportunities for the chiefs and others to talk and builds trust. And that's the most important thing. So with that, I'll stop my part.
That's true. In fact, you said it right that at the functional level, unless you have some familiarity, interoperability is then a non-starter if you are not aware of how systems function, how personnel know each other, that kind of thing. So let me move on to our friend from Japan, who is Colonel Morotomi. Japan is at the other end of the Indo-Pacific, at the one extreme of the Indo-Pacific. The US is there. I mean, you can call it either way. And the expectations are always that Japan will contribute heavily to this forum. So what are your expectations from this particular edition of IPACC and IPAM? And how do you think Japan can really contribute to the success of this forum?
First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to the co-host Indian Army and the US Army for their effort toward organizing the IPACC. And I would also like to thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. I think IPACC is a framework with great potential. It would be a rare opportunity to bring so many army chiefs together. IPACC will create mutual understanding, confidence building, and will be helpful in building multilateral and multi-layered defense cooperation and creating favorable security environment. So the security environment surrounding us has changed dramatically in recent years. We have to prepare for not only traditional threat like unilateral attempts of changing the status quo by force, but also non-traditional threat like terrorism, piracy, cross-border crime, cybercrime, information warfare, climate change, and also infectious diseases. As these threats grow, the role of the military expands. Our work is increasing, so it is difficult for single country to respond to these threats alone. And international cooperation is essential for an effective response. And under these circumstances, Japan has been actively promoting multilateral defense cooperation, strengthen ties with many countries under the vision of FOIP, Free and Open Indo-Pacific. So, and this year, in March, our Prime Minister Kishida announced new FOIP plan in Delhi, India. So, since many security challenges exist in the Indo-Pacific region, so it is necessary to promote confidence building, mutual understanding to avoid unforeseen situations. So, and global security challenges have emerged in recent years that are difficult for any single country to address on its own. And it is important for the countries concerned to cooperate with each other on a regular basis, I think. So, conclusion, the IPACC framework has the potential to work effectively to improve mutual understanding, confidence building, and interoperability among countries. So, Japan, not only me, Japan, fully support the IPACC. That's all.
It was very well said. I think you covered a very comprehensive ground, Colonel Morotomi. You spoke about climate change, the threat from non-traditional security threats that are emerging in this Indo-Pacific region. Also, you spoke about how nations must work together. I think that's a commendable aim to achieve, an objective to have in front of this kind of a forum. And on that note, that actually gives me a cue to ask our friend from Maldives, Brigadier General Mohammed Ibrahim, that Maldives, when you see its location and its threat that it faces from climate change, what do you expect the IPACC to do in terms of assisting you in natural calamities, disasters, or even climate change that is actually a realistic threat or a real-time threat to Maldives? I think you have a very big expectation from this forum and from the world. So if you can elaborate on that.
Thank you very much, sir. In the Maldives equation to this forum, we would like to use it as an opportunity to express kind of the challenges the island states in the Indo-Pacific region face in their survival fight across the change in dynamic environmental challenges that the globe is facing. In this regard, the Maldives pose a very unique opportunity to the Indo-Pacific as well, because given at any time of the day when you look into the Maldives, it is a country that has more third nation citizens in the Maldives than the Maldivians due to the tourism as well as other opportunities available there. And when we look into the Maldivian tourism, it is also a very high-end tourism which attracts a very elevated citizens of their respective countries to the Maldives. So when a calamity happens in the Maldivian context, though it is very rare, since independence we had the tsunami of 2004 that actually crippled the nation to that extent. When it happens, it does not only become a Maldivian problem, it also becomes an international problem because there will be a large number of international citizens in the Maldives at any given time. So we use the IPACC, and we expect the IPACC to understand the challenges to the island nations, the vulnerabilities of the island nation. For example, Maldives is only 3 feet above the sea level. No matter how prepared we are, no matter how much we bring into the Maldives in order to fight these kind of challenges, when a tsunami or a wave surge happens, everything cripples. From the communication to even the water reserves gets damaged. So very quickly, the mobility gets crippled, and we look upon our friends to kind of really start over from the incident. So we use it as an opportunity to basically put our situation across, engage with our partners and friends, look into the availability of resources and the kind of specific things that we can ask our friends to help us if and when a situation arises in Maldives. And in that context, we have to be very grateful to the international community. Whenever something has happened to the Maldives, we've been very blessed by a very forthcoming partnership from our friends near as well as our friends from far. And throughout our history, whenever something of this magnitude has ever happened to the Maldives, we have been always very blessed with the assistance we receive from friends, and we want to give the friends an opportunity to extend that engagement and also to be more timely in the future if and when an incident happens. And the only opportunity we have is kind of engage with our counterparts across the Indo-Pacific region and establish that understanding, develop that friendship, and most importantly, that collaboration and trust with international partners.
I think you put it absolutely correct that Maldives has this expectation, and this forum does provide you that connectivity or the network that you have with other armies in the Indo-Pacific. That I'm sure the other countries will step up to come and assist you whenever required. God forbid it should not come anytime, but if it does, I'm sure other partners will come to your assistance and your help whenever required, as it has happened in the past. That reminds me of having a kind of a protocol or SOP, standard operating procedures, for coming to the aid of anybody who is in difficulty. And on that note, I want to bring in our friend from Singapore, Colonel Raymond, for telling us or sharing what the Singaporean approach can bring in. In fact, if I remember correctly, you have several multilateral forums in Singapore which are working on a collaborative approach for the region. I'm sure there are several good practices in those forums and those multilateral organizations. Can you share some of those good practices, the best practices that can be then disseminated to the other countries?
Certainly. Thank you, Nitin. But before I say anything else, please allow me to thank the co-organizers, the US Army as well as the Indian Army, for inviting 2 naval officers to this esteemed conference to add a touch of white to it. Although the other guy is a pilot, so no count. So seriously, to address your question, let's see this concept of a non-traditional security threat as a basket. And in the Singaporean mind, we are quite clear that there are probably 3 pots that we need to deal with. The first pot will be the HADR pot. The second one will be the maritime security pot. And the third one will be the counter-terrorism pot. So in essence, what we have done, recognizing that we are an inclusive member of the rule-based international order, we need to be able to lean forward to provide platforms that will enable like-minded partners to come and do information sharing and to a large extent collaborate. But the ultimate aim of this is actually to shape this habit of collaboration and information sharing. We can say these words a lot, but these things are not natural. And it takes time, effort, and motivation to build this structured belief. So what we have done in Singapore through the years is to build 3 entities. The oldest among them will be the Singapore Information Fusion Center, which looks after the maritime security portion. And what we do is that we have about 100 operational linkages and currently about 21 international liaison officers. And every day, these officers actually work together as part of an international platform to actually detect, aggregate, sense-make, and share timely information to help to queue operations across the region to make the sea space safer. On the HADR portion, we have the Regional HADR Coordination Center, or RHCC. Now, this is a sister center to the IFC, and they co-locate in the same building. And they also co-share international liaison officers so that there's more bang for buck for countries sending the officers there. And essentially, the RHCC also does a similar mandate like the IFC, but in the HADR space. Now, I think it's important to recognize that within the ASEAN construct itself, there is already an ASEAN Coordination Center for HADR called AHA. We are not competing with AHA, but what RHCC does is it provides a complementary element to support military coordination with AHA in the area of crisis. And the third pod that we speak of is the counter-terrorism pod. In this aspect, we have the Counter-Terrorism Information Fusion Center, a very new entity set up in 2021, where like-minded partners come together, do exactly the same few things that we spoke of earlier, but in the counter-terrorism portion. So in all, as I basically conclude in this to answer the question, is to highlight the fact that Singapore is in a position where we lean forward to support with these multinational platforms to help everybody structure that shared belief that we can work together regardless of how things are not so good at the geopolitical front. So thank you for the question, Nitin.
I think Singapore is always the pioneer in creating these kind of multilateral forums. Punches above its weight is my opinion. And of course, as we know, is a preferred venue for many of the contentious meetings between different political leaders or country leaders. And that actually is the strength that Singapore brings to the table in this IPACC also, I'm sure, as you have mentioned. And I think even India has now got this IFC IOR, which is, I think, modeled on the same system that you have in Singapore, which again is also creating the same kind of synergy in the Indo-Pacific. But let me move on to our last volunteer here, speaker, Captain Yves Lacar from France. What are your expectations from IPACC? I know you are a naval officer, as Raymond has said, but I'm sure you are representing the country, so you know what exactly France is expecting from this forum itself. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Apparently, I'm only a half Navy officer because I'm also a pilot regarding Raymond. First, like my colleagues, I would really like to thank the Chief of Army Staff of the Indian Army and the United States Army for co-organizing this hugely important event. The fact that our Chief of Army Staff is coming illustrates the importance that we put in the presence to IPACC organizing in India, with whom we are celebrating this year our 25th anniversary of our strategic partnership. In accordance with the logic driven by the transformation process of the Army, Major General Kadapeo, I'm sorry, it's not an easy name for me, will represent our chief on the first 2 days of IPACC. He is the commanding officer of the 3rd Division in France, which has been tasked in the reform with all the relationship and partnerships for international engagement outside Europe and mainland US. So he will be there for the first 2 days representing our Chief of Army Staff. Just to remind why we are here, because we are a European country, but we are a resident nation of Indo-Pacific. And I think it's quite important to remind the audience that 90% of our exclusive economic zone, which counts overall 10.2 million square kilometers, are in the Indo-Pacific due to our territories and islands. 3 main blocks where we do have forces being deployed: La Réunion, New Caledonia, and French Polynesia. As our president often says, France is a full member state of the Indo-Pacific, aiming at exerting a balancing power in the region. As a resident nation, we maintain and develop a strong network of partnerships which support our equally strong commitment to regional security. The armies, as well as the other services, are key elements in order to provide this security. We reject the bloc logic, and we are looking for multilateralism, as we have been exposed previously by the vice chiefs. Our primary challenges is to meet in the Indo-Pacific are protecting our sovereignty, preserving the lines of communication and supply of the local territories, which are expanded on the wide distance compared to the metropolitan territory, and protecting, of course, French nationals in the area. So, coming back to your questions, what expectations from IPACC? It is a unique opportunity for fruitful sharing of expertise. And that is on regional security matters, of course. IPACC will likely allow the participants to exchange views on various issues you've already exposed, but may insist on building trust between partners. Cooperation outside of the military domain. It's not only purely military activities. It's also supporting society. The need for autonomy of modern armies, and so on. And of course, if our Chief of Army Staff is coming, it's really in order to engage with his counterparts. I'm much more focusing on IPACC than IPAMS and SELF, but it's equivalent for the others. But it's all about having bilateral meetings, exchanging on our challenges, and I think looking at the overall panel just in front of me and the impressive Indian presence, I think it will be a huge event that will have a real impact on a collaborative approach for all threats and not only non-traditional. Many thanks.
I think you couldn't have ended on a better note, because 2 things stand out from your presentation, if I may call that, is one, that you reminded everyone that France is a resident Indo-Pacific power if that reminder was needed. And second is the collaborative approach and the kind of meetings, bilateral meetings that take place on the sidelines, not just necessarily multilateral issues that happen. So thank you very much, all of you, for being so candid and so forthcoming in your opinion and your country's stand on how IPACC is seen and how IPACC will be functioning here next week something. So I must thank the Indian Army for giving me and my organization BharatShakti.in to be the host of this particular conversation. I'm sure we'll have more such occasions, and just to reiterate that we'll meet again next month, where I have an event where I expect all of you, and I invite all of you again, all of the DAs here on 10th of October. Just taking this opportunity to invite in person, and of course you'll get it in writing. So looking forward to that, and thank you very much for this opportunity, Indian Army and all you officers here. Thank you.